Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plants training video. In this session, we will be covering information useful to first-time users of Quantities to Plants, such as what is available on the Q2P website, how to sign up for the Q2P mailing list, starting the application for the first time, and navigating in Quantities to Plants. Quantities to Plants, also known as Q2P, is an add-in developed by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for Microsoft Excel for creating miscellaneous quantity sheets for plan sets. Utilizing the existing functionality of Excel, users can compute quantities and format tables. Those tables are then linked to Microsoft PowerPoint or Civil 3D templates to create miscellaneous quantity plan sheets. The process of documenting and tabulating data from miscellaneous quantity sheets is also useful for preparing an engineer's estimate of construction cost, both in establishing estimated quantities and developing estimated prices. That information can be exported to a file to be uploaded into the department's Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction database. The Q2P website is the hub on the department's website for information on Q2P. On this website, you will find links to the user guide, installation package and instructions for non-DOT users, a sign up for the Q2P mailing list, as well as support contacts and template downloads for PowerPoint. You'll notice two different user guides here. The one dated August 14th, 2019 is for the current version of Q2P, which allows for users external to the Department of Transportation. The version dated September 15th, 2016 is for a past version of Q2P, which was for department users only and is still in legacy use. Department staff, work with your supervisor to create an IT service request and request the seat of the Quantities to Plants applications. External users, utilize the Q2P installer from the Q2P website. The Q2P installation instructions README is a useful guide in addressing common issues in installation. Coordinate with your office's IT department prior to installing. The Q2P support staff maintains an email distribution list for the purposes of announcing upgrades and issues with the application. To sign up for the distribution list, enter your email address and your name in the fields. Once the data is entered, select the Subscribe button. You will receive an email with a link for you to confirm your subscription. Keep this email in your files. It will include a link to unsubscribe from the distribution list. You will be able to initialize Q2P from the Apps settings inside your Windows settings. Prior to starting work in Q2P, you'll need to perform one final step. In your computer's application settings, find Q2P. This is easiest done by searching for the letter Q, the number 2, and the letter P in the search field. Select the application that it finds, and select Modify to bring up the application setup wizard. Select the Repair Q2P Excel add-in button and click Finish to close the dialog box. Close out of Excel if open, and the next time Excel opens, a new ribbon tab should be seen. Q2P. Q2P takes a lot of benefit from being an add-on to Microsoft Excel. Basic functionality in Excel has been retained. Formatting worksheets and creating formulas remains the same. Due to the large number of worksheets that can be created, Q2P includes some navigational tools to assist you in working with your file. Some of these are added in the context-sensitive right-click on your mouse. While on the bid items worksheet, the right-click will show the opportunity to go to the worksheet of the item clicked on. Because Q2P can show items on multiple worksheets, you will always be given the dialog box to select which worksheet to navigate to. Similarly, you can navigate back to the bid items worksheet on that same context-sensitive right-click. You will also find this command in the Tool group of the Q2P ribbon. Just a few warnings. Do not utilize the basic Excel functions to delete worksheets or rename worksheets, typically accessed by right-clicking on the Worksheet tab. Doing so will create errors with the application functions used to create worksheets and XML export files. The bid items worksheet is by default protected from some editing. Notice, for example, how the options to insert or delete rows or to format the cells is not available. Similarly, several formatting tools on the Home ribbon are locked out by this protection as well. This is to prevent users from performing some actions that could impact the ability of the application to create XML export files. For some workflows, such as working with the 80/20 significant item guideline for estimate documentation, you will unprotect this worksheet. When you perform a command from the Q2P ribbon, the worksheet will become protected again. No password is utilized in the protection of the worksheet. If you encounter a problem in Q2P, first check the user guide and online training to verify you have followed the workflows correctly. If you are still encountering problems, you can ask for assistance by contacting Q2P support staff by using the DOT Q2P at dot.wi.gov email address. Staff in WisDOT region offices are also encouraged to contact support staff in their offices. A list of members of the Q2P support staff is found on the Q2P website. This concludes this session of Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video about starting a project in Quantities to Plans. In this session, we will be covering how to set up a new Quantities to Plans file for use. To start work with the Q2P application, select the Q2P ribbon in Excel. The Q2P ribbon is arranged from left to right in a typical order of operations. On the left side of the ribbon is the project group, which deals with setting up a project. The data group is concerned with the available bid items which the application will pull from. The MQ sheet group will be used to create and modify tables for insertion into miscellaneous quantity plan sheets. The tool group will be used for modifying data and navigating the file. The export group is used to format data for use in other programs. The import group is used to bring in data from other programs. Start your new Q2P file by selecting the New command from the project group of the Q2P ribbon. This might take a moment while the application loads. You'll note that right away a template shows and the initial worksheet inside Excel is renamed. The Project Setup dialog box is also open, allowing you to enter project data. Most of this is available in FIPS or on your project concept definition report. It is essential that you enter the project title and limits exactly as FIPS has it for purposes of coordination when importing into Ashtaware project pre-construction. Just one note here, an ampersand character, typically shown on the 7 key on your keyboard, will cause the XML export command to fail. This is the only alteration from FIPS that is required when entering project data. For this project, we'll be using John Doe as a project manager. As typical with Microsoft Excel dialog boxes, you can use the Tab key on your keyboard to move between fields. We'll use 12345678 as the construction project ID. Keep in mind that Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction files projects by construction project ID, and as such we should keep our Q2P file referenced to that to allow for a more appropriate export. The project title is Waukesha to Superior, and the limits is Green Bay to La Crosse. Enter SDH1 as the highway and Adams as the county. Counties are filed alphabetically in the drop-down menu, but by selecting the first letter of the county on the keyboard, it can get you closer to the one you're looking for. We'll utilize program code 303 for this project and use the concept of resurfacing. We won't enter centerline miles for this exercise. Use the calendar tools to select a PS&E date of May 13th, 2019, and August 1st, 2019 for the let date. Once the data is entered and you select the green OK button, you will be directed immediately to save the file. Best practice is that you store the file with your project electronic design files or on a server that is backed up regularly. The project setup command in the project group will bring the project setup dialog box back up and will allow you to modify the project information. If you cancel out of the new command prior to saving the file, you will have to use the new command again and restart the process. The category setup command opens a dialog box that will allow you to enter funding categories to assign bid items to. Categories for the project are found in FIPS. Again, as with the project title, effort should be made to match those with the information in FIPS. The federal work type will be selected from the drop-down menu. While the category description has some preloaded entries available on the drop-down menu, it also allows you to type in a custom entry. Funding should be entered according to FIPS, though this will only show through on your Q2P file when you print a cost report. Let's enter our first category. We're on a resurfacing project, so we'll be going with Federal Work Type 5. We want roadway construction as the description, but that's not an option in the drop-down menu. So we'll take this opportunity to type it in ourselves. And enter 80% federal and 20% state in the funding category. The funding field entered in here is only for general use when using the reports out of Q2P. This does not actually export into Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction. Select the OK button to accept the category. To add or to edit categories, select the Category Setup command in the project group of the Q2P ribbon. The dialog box defaults to the next empty category to start. Notice the category drop-down menu on the left side of the dialog box. It allows you to select current categories and the next one in order. The application will not allow you to leave gaps in the categories. You can't enter a category 30 without first having entered category 20. After viewing the current category, the existing category's values will carry through when you select the new category. In our project, category 20 is for bridge replacement, with the description of bridge replacement BXXXXX. Once again, that is not an available option on our dropdown, so we will type it in manually. In this case, our funding would be 75% federal and 25% City of Green Bay. We'll also change the federal work type of this category to category 10. When you close the box and accept your entry with the green OK button, you'll notice that the category at the bottom of your bid items worksheet gets filled in. This only happens when you accept the category entered with the green OK button in the dialog box. That means that you will have to open the category setup dialog box every time you want to enter a single new category. In our sample project, category 30 is for federal work type 3 with a description of retaining walls. The funding for this category is 25% federal and 75% City of Green Bay. Accept the entered data by selecting the green OK button. Bear in mind that the category setup command is also used to delete categories from the project. If you would navigate to category 30 that we just entered, you'll notice a red delete button is now present. You'll notice if we navigate to category 10 or to category 20, that red delete button does not appear because the program requires you to keep a sequential order to your categories. It will only allow you to delete the last entered category. This concludes this session of Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video about working with bid items and supplemental descriptions. We will be covering how to work with the bid items list, how to add or edit supplemental descriptions, and how to work with SPV items. When the Published Bid Items command is selected, Q2P connects to the department's server and pulls a current list of bid items from the same database as Ash-to-Ware project pre-construction. This allows the department to keep references consistent across programs. You will not be able to edit any information in this dialog box. It is most useful in browsing for items to add to your project. Please note that the first time you use this command in a Q2P file, it may take a moment to open. If you are working with items with supplemental descriptions or SPV items, you'll be using the Project Bid Items command to work with them. Items that Ash-to-Ware project pre-construction requires a supplemental description for are noted in the Supplemental Description Required column. If an XML export file from Q2P does not have those supplemental descriptions when required, the XML upload into Ash-to-Ware project pre-construction will fail. Let's look at an item requiring a supplemental description. Scroll down and to see item 213 and 0100. Which is the item finishing roadway by project. You'll notice that Q2P not only has the item 213 and 0100, but it's also preloaded with the item 213, 0100, and 01 with the same item description. You'll notice this is the case for all items requiring supplemental descriptions. And why the .01 suffix on the item number is to keep the items sorted and discrete when showing item numbers in the miscellaneous quantity tables or in the special provisions. Ash-to-Ware project pre-construction doesn't use the suffixes, but it keeps the items discrete by the supplemental descriptions. The project bid items table is populated from the published bid items list, and additional items created by the program when items with supplemental descriptions required are encountered. If you were to attempt to select item 213 and 0100 and edit the entry to add a special provision, you would get an error message. What the dialog box is doing here is preserving a baseline item for you to reference when creating entries for items with different supplemental descriptions. To edit the supplemental description of an item, select the version with the 2-digit suffix on it. In the case of finishing roadway, it would be 213 and 0100 and 01. You'll notice that the right-hand side of the dialog box populates, allowing you to edit the item. In this case, let's add a project number as part of the supplemental description. Select the green Update key to update the items list. A few things here. You'll notice the supplemental description column of the dialog box updated. You'll also notice that the dialog box didn't close. This is to make it easier on you if you're looking to make several changes in one session. To dismiss the dialog box, utilize the dark gray X symbol in the upper right-hand corner. A little deeper is that you'll notice I didn't remove the 2-digit indicator at the front of the supplemental description. This is done to sort items properly in AshToWare Project Pre-Construction, as it sorts first by item number and then by supplemental description. Another reminder is that department style in AshToWare Project Pre-Construction is to utilize initial caps on supplemental descriptions. That is to only capitalize the first letter of every word. The department's proposal management unit will comment if you enter the supplemental descriptions improperly. You can edit this description at any time, which will then transfer to the bid items worksheets when you update the database. For example, if you wanted to change the project ID referenced in the item edited, we could. Select item 213 and 0100 and 01 again, and replace the project ID in there with 5300 02 73. Select the green Update button to process the information. But what happens if you have more than one occurrence of an item that requires a supplemental description? Like if you have multiple IDs for finishing roadway or multiple structures to remove on a project. Our sample project will use item 517 and 1010.s 4 times. The first one is easy. The supplemental description template is already made for you. Find item 517 1010 S01. Select Edit Mode and edit the supplemental description to read B13572. Select Update to process the information, but we'll need another 3 instances to edit here. To do this, we'll add the items to the locally stored list. Select the blue plus sign on the menu bar near the top of the dialog box. This added a new blank line at the bottom of the database. Select Edit Mode and you can add the item information we need. In the base bid item dropdown, all items in the project bid item list that require supplemental descriptions are listed. We're looking for item 517 1010.s. You'll see the item description and unit populate. You'll also see a period following the base item number in the reference item name field. This is for you to add the 2-digit suffix. Because this is the second one of this item in the project, we'll use the suffix 02 this time. Now we'll add the supplemental description. Remember to add the 2-digit prefix to have AshToWare sort the item properly. This time, we're referencing R13251. See how the dialog box updates. To add the third instance, select the blue plus sign again. We'll be using R13253 for this one. Select the item from the base bit item drop-down box. Add our 2-digit suffix. And add our supplemental description. Select the green Update button to add it to the database. The final instance is for R13254. Add a row to the dialog box, select Edit Mode. Select the base bit item from the drop-down box. Add the suffix to the reference item name. Add your supplemental description. Select the green Update button. Note that while in the same section of the dialog box, all new rows will generate at the bottom of the list. Once exiting the dialog box and re-entering, the items will sort in with the other bit items by item number. A warning here. While Q2P will allow you to edit item descriptions and supplemental descriptions in the bit items worksheet, the program only looks at the data in the project bit items dialog box when exporting information into Ashtaware Project Estimator or Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction. Working with SPV items in Q2P is exactly like working with standard bit items with supplemental descriptions. But in the case of SPV items, the item description is primarily in the supplemental description. As with entering supplemental descriptions, we utilize the Project Bit Items dialog box found in the data group. Because the program sorts numerals before letters, you'll find the bit items that start with letters, like the ASP1 on the job training items. So all the SPV items will be near the bottom of the list. Just like the regular items with supplemental descriptions, each SPV item has a template item made for it. We'll be using SPV 0195 twice. The first one, like normal items above, is already templated for you. Select the item, enter into edit mode, and change the supplemental description to read lukewarm mixed asphalt pavement type Q42. Remember to use initial capitals format for the text. We'll also have another SPV and 0195. We'll add a new item to the list. Enter edit mode. Utilize SPV 0195 as the base bit item. Add the suffix to the reference item name. And add a supplemental description. This one we'll call Cool Mix Asphalt Pavement Type 1. Remember to select the green Update button to accept the information you just entered into the project bid items list. This concludes this session of Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video about creating miscellaneous quantity worksheets. In this session, we will cover creation of miscellaneous quantity worksheets, creating combined item worksheets, and entering data into item worksheets. Most of the work in Q2P is done using miscellaneous quantity sheets, abbreviated in the application as MQ sheets. These are the tables that will be linked into the PowerPoint templates for plan sheets. They will tally and total quantities for use in preparation of the engineer's estimate and hold the data that is exported into Ash2Ware project pre-construction. To start, select the Create MQ Sheet command from the MQ Sheet group on the Q2P ribbon. The first step would be to select a bid item, say item 646-3020, marking line epoxy 8-inch. You can scroll through the list, which has been populated from the project bid items list, or you can use the search box in the upper right-hand corner of the dialog box. We'll first use the search function. Notice that the search takes us to the next instance of the searched term, which is really close to what we're looking for, so we can scroll from here. Now that you've selected your item, you should look at the defined categories on the bottom of the dialog box and select which categories the item applies to. Don't worry if you don't know this part yet. You can add or remove an item from different categories with the Q2P application after the MQ sheet is created. In this case, the roadway construction category is the only one we'll be looking for. Once you have your item and category selected, accept the selection by selecting the green Create New Sheet button. Q2P will create a new worksheet setup for this item. You notice that the name of the worksheet on the Worksheet tab navigator is the item number. You'll see the item number as the title for the table. This is the worksheet name referenced, not the item number. And a column on the table labeled with the item number, item description, and measurement unit. Navigating back to the bid items worksheet, you'll see that the item is listed on this sheet. Q2P creates the links back to the individual item table, which will allow you to enter data on the worksheet, and it will be collected here. While we're here, let's add a few more items. Select the Create MQ Sheet command again. Q2P maintains the basic selection styles of Excel and common to Microsoft products. Let's first select the item 213-0100-01, which we had defined in the last session. Using Shift Select, we can select all items in the list, including the item selected. Select item 305-0500 to try this out. Notice a few things here. You'll see 11 bid items selected on the right-hand side, which is useful if you're selecting items all over the list to keep track. And the default MQ sheet name has changed. Anytime the dialog box sees more than one item selected, it presumes you want to put them all onto one table, and the new MQ sheet name field is prompting you to enter an appropriate worksheet name. By selecting any other item on the list, the selection set is reduced to a single item. You can also clear the selection by selecting the Reset Bid Item Selection button just above the table of project bid items. You can also use Control Select functionality to discretely select and remove items from the selection set. For example, let's select items 213, 0100, 01 and 460, 2000. Select item 213, 0100, 01 as normal. And then hold down the Control key as you select item 460, 2000. You'll see both selected in the dialog box. Note that if you're making a discrete selection set, Control selecting an item that is selected will remove it from the set. Let's do that with item 460, 2000. Bear in mind that if you select an item without holding the Control key, you will lose all other items that have been a part of your selection set. There are also a few things to know about the item description search. The search function will only work from the current selection down the list. The search function also selects each item you select as you click Find Next. For example, as we select Aggregate. Notice that each time you select Find Next, an additional item is added to your selected bid items. To select just one item, select the Reset Bid Items selection. You'll notice that the table of project bid items did not scroll. You can now select the item you want individually. Now that we've learned to select more efficiently, let's select items 213, 0100, 01, 460, 2000, and SPV 0195, 01. After selecting our first item, we scroll down to the next one. Select it while holding down the Control key. Scroll down to our next item and select that holding down the Control key. Using the orange Create Separate Sheets button, Q2P will create individual sheets for each of the items selected. Bear in mind that the sheets will default to the same category setup. This shouldn't be a deal breaker. Adding or removing quantities to an MQ sheet after the fact isn't that difficult and will be covered in a separate training session. We're only looking for category 10 on our 3 items, so let's make our individual item sheets. As you make your miscellaneous quantity tables, there are plenty of related items that would benefit from being on the same table. Take clearing and grubbing, for example. Most contracts would want those scheduled in the exact same places, so putting them on the same table is both paper space efficient and saves you, the designer, time. Or permanent signing, showing signposts and signs on the same table because they will use the same locations. Or if your HMA surface has separate items for binder and surface courses. When you select multiple items in the Create MQ Sheet command, Q2P can put them all in the same worksheet in the same table. Select the Create MQ Sheet command and we'll show you how to do this. Just like creating multiple individual sheets, you start by selecting multiple items. We'll look at putting a combined HMA table together. So we'll select items 455, 0605, 460, 6223, 460, 6424, and 465, 0105. Remember to Control Select as you add additional items to your selection set. Finally, 465.01.05. One of these items will have work in category 30, so Control select that in the categories list. Because we have multiple items selected, the default MQ sheet name has changed. We'll want to add one that is descriptive of what we're doing. Using a 3-digit prefix on the descriptions allows Excel to sort the sheet with like items. So for this case, we'll use 465 asphalt pavement. I recommend using all caps here because the table title that is created defaults to the MQ sheet name at creation. Once you select the green Create New Sheet button, Q2P will make the combined item sheet. Notice a few things here. We have 2 categories and 2 category total rows on the table, and a project total row as required by the FDM. Going back to the bid items sheet, one of the benefits of using Q2P is that it takes the work you normally do tabulating quantities and keeps the data hot linked, so you will have the information entered one place only and it updates through the food chain. But the rubber hits the road in entering the data into the Q2P file. We'll start with something simple. Item 213-0100-01, finishing roadway. This is a once per project item, so we'll just enter a quantity and move on. Did you notice something there? How the data we entered overrode a formula? Well, before we can produce the XML export, we'll run a command to make sure the formulas are correct in the file. Let's do that now to double check. The command we'll use is the Update Bid Items command in the tool group of the Q2P ribbon. You'll see each item defined on an MQ sheet in this dialog box. If you had opened it up on an MQ sheet, you'll only see the items in that sheet. Select item 213-0100-01 and select the Update Selected button. Close the notification by selecting OK, and close the dialog box by clicking on the gray X in the upper right-hand corner. Look at that. The data we entered on this sheet got overwritten. Select the cell we entered the data in. Looking up at the formula bar, you see a formula reference to the MQ sheet we created earlier. Keep in mind that Q2P, when compiling totals and export files, does not look at the quantity column of the bid items sheets. For one thing, it wouldn't break down the quantity in categories if you had multiple categories applied to one item. So don't enter your data on the bid items worksheet. When you run a Q2P check to verify or repair these links, that data will be overwritten. Instead, let's enter that data where the formula says to. Navigate to the MQ sheet for item 213-0100-01. You'll be making worksheets like this for several items that won't be showing up in your plan set, but you'll still need to enter your data here. Enter a quantity of 1 in the column under the item. We could spend some time formatting the table to make it look nice for the plans, but we won't be showing this item in the miscellaneous quantity plan sheets, so don't bother investing the effort. Just noting the quantity is enough. This is also the fastest way to enter item data from other consultants or agencies into your estimate if you're planning on using miscellaneous quantity tables that they generate. Now let's see how the bid items worksheet responded to this work. You see, this time the quantity rolled through. On the items that you want to show miscellaneous quantity plan sheets, you'll need to go more in depth. Let's enter some data into the asphaltic pavement MQ sheet now. The station columns are formatted to show in station notation. Type 24,055 in the first row for category 10 to see it in action. This formatting allows station formatted numbers to still be used in formula for computations. Bear in mind that if you add in alignment description, the cell becomes a text string and won't be able to be used in formulas. For example, in category 30, we'll have a quantity from station 450 plus 89 alignment BL to station 451 and 47 alignment BL. Enter that into the appropriate cells. Station 450 plus 89 BL and station 451 and 47 BL. Because of the BL alignment description, Excel recognizes the data as a text string, so it won't apply the station formatting on its own. Let's enter some other locations. In the first row of category 10, the area ends at station 247 plus 74. And it's on both sides of the center line. We also have work at station 242 plus 61 to station 243.26 left, and station 250.30 to 254.40 left and right. The work we previously entered in category 30 is right of the referenced alignment. Now we could put some of the computation power in Excel to work. We could take our easily measured geometric data from CAD and convert it into estimated quantities. When we copy from this MQ sheet into our plan sheets, we get to select which data comes along for the ride. That means we can add computation and notes to the right-hand side of the table with no consequence to the look of that table on the plan sheet, and it provides documentation for our computations. The next step is to set up some tables to do those computations. From our pavement design report, we're using an HMA density of 112 pounds per square yard per inch thickness. We'll need to get an area in square yards and a layer thickness in inches to convert into tons. Areas have been collected in square feet from flooding areas in CAD. For the first row in category 10, that's 38,290 square feet. So we'll add a column header for area, square feet, as an item, and enter 38,290. Similarly, The second row in category 10 is 527 and 4/10 square feet. 527 and 4/10. And the third row is 21,534 square feet. 21,534. The row in category 30 is 2,192 square feet. We'll compute this in square yards in the next column. We can use an Excel formula for that and copy it to the other rows using the clipboard or fill down. Adding a header for the column, the units, typing the formula, filled using Control D for fill down, filled using copy and paste from the clipboard using Control C and Control V. Next, we'll set up our asphalt layers. We'll set up columns to set layer depth, and then compute weight in pounds, then convert to tons. So for this column, we'll type lower layer depth. We'll use an unit of inches. In the next column, we'll use a header of weight, and unit of pounds. In column W, we'll use a header of weight and a unit of tons. Column X will start entering our information for the upper layer. Because we'll be looking at similar formulas, we'll just copy over our column headers following that. In the first and third rows of category 10, we have a 3 1/4 inch lower layer and a 2-inch upper layer. The second row of category 10 and category 30 are both asphaltic surface restoration, so they are both 3 inches in the upper layer only. Now we need to set up our density constant. This is best done above the table so that it's easy to view. We'll enter the 112 pounds per inch per square yard and be sure to note our units next to it. Remember to note units for your constants. It's a good check on your computations and will assist others in following your documentation. Now we can set up the formulas. Weight in pounds is equal to the area times the depth times the density. Area in square yards times the depth in inches times the density in pounds per square yard per inch. Remember that the F4 key in Excel is mapped to fix the constant reference that we've already set up for the density to help you move between columns. Selecting F4 multiple times will fix either the row or the column as well in the formula. We'll also do this for the upper layer. To convert from pounds to tons, we divide the weight in pounds by 2,000. Copying that to other instances of the unit conversion. Now what we must do is reference this data back to our display table. In the case of rows 8 and 10, we'll have quantity in item 460, 62, 23 for the lower layer and 460, 64, 24 for the upper layer. For rows 9 and 16, we'll have quantity in item 465, 01, 05. And we have the data entered. Let's look back at the bid items worksheet. Notice here that what was seemingly rounded on the MQ sheet is not here. It's because we didn't round the data, but instead showed less decimal places due to formatting. To get the rounded numbers that the FDM requires, we'll need to insert formulas for rounding in the MQ sheet. Navigating back to the asphalt pavement MQ sheet. Here, the roundup quantity command on the MQ sheet group on the Q2P ribbon shines. It automates adding the roundup function in Excel to each formula. First, select the cell you want to apply the function to and select the roundup quantity command. Notice how the number changed in that cell. The formula bar also uses the roundup formula as well. The roundup quantity command is not always the best option to use. Sometimes it is more appropriate to use the roundup quantity command on the category total, not each entry. This is more appropriate in situations where you're working with lots of small areas, like tabulating seeding and fertilizer in an urban area where you have many small areas to restore. But in this case, it's more than adequate. Select the table areas and select the roundup quantity command. Note that you'll get an error if you select multiple columns while using this command, so work one column at a time. Note that if you round individual item entries, you don't need to round the category or project totals. And for the 4MT and the asphaltic surface. The bid items worksheet is restricted against most formatting to keep the user from altering the references in the Q2P file. But the table in the MQ worksheet are the chief deliverable of Q2P, and you have all the formatting of Excel to format your table. You can alter row height and column width by dragging or selecting with the right-click context menu. You could add borders to assess eye lines across tables. You can enter dashes to show no quantity present at the location for an item. Enter text remarks or notes. For each item, you can remove columns D and E because you're referencing specific locations. You can insert or delete rows to add room for more data or remove data or unneeded rows. The table title and column headers are generated by Q2P from a template. The text on MQ sheets is not hot linked to anything, so you can alter the format of these objects as necessary. Just keep a few things in mind. The fonts selected are consistent with Civil 3D drafting standards and are selected for readability when converted to PDF and printed. It is best practice to keep the fonts as selected. Drafting standards state text placed in miscellaneous quantity plan sheets should be in all caps. Also, do not alter the category total cell text or the spatial relationship between that cell and the category item total cells. This is a specific relationship used in the application to automate the creation of MQ sheets and the XML export file. Altering these will create errors when using the Update Bid Items command. This concludes this session of Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video about modifying miscellaneous quantity worksheets. In this session, we will be covering adding or removing items from a miscellaneous quantity worksheet, deleting bid items entirely from a Q2P file, adding or deleting a category from a miscellaneous quantity worksheet, and renaming miscellaneous quantity worksheets. You'll be working with Q2P throughout your project lifecycle. Many existing users find it useful to create MQ sheets at the DSR level and the associated assistance in tabulating quantities for preparing cost estimate documentation. But things will change. You'll add or remove items from the project. You'll adjust which items are associated with which categories. Maybe you'll add or remove categories entirely. Even though a lot of things we do in this training look like they can be accomplished with basic Excel functionality, to maintain the data references Q2P uses to generate the XML export file at design completion, we have commands to do this work. Let's say you submitted your DSR level plans for review, and your pavement marking specialist came back with comments to add some things to the project. It means adding some bid items in areas already scheduled with another item. The market specialist comment says to add item 646-6020 and item 646-6220 to your project. This is done by using the Insert Bid Items command in the MQ sheet group of the Q2P ribbon. This will look very similar to the Create MQ Sheet dialog box because it uses the same basic layout. What's different is that you're always looking to insert the item into an active MQ worksheet, which already has categories defined on it and a name. Like on the Create MQ Sheet dialog box, you can use Shift Select and Control Select to add multiple items at once. Select items 646-6020 and 646-6220 in the dialog box. Remember to hold the Control key as you select the second one. (646-6020), holding Control to select 646-6220. Select the green Insert button to insert the items and dismiss the dialog box. And here we are, two new items on the same MQ sheet as our 4-inch epoxy marking line item. Q2P will attempt to order columns by item number. If you've done formatting on the column headers, this may result in some interesting results as Q2P inserts the columns for the items. Now we'll add some data. The third row, under 12-inch stop line, we'll add 40 feet. And on the second row, under the 18-inch yield line, we'll add 80 feet. Best practice when having multiple bid items on one sheet is to name the sheet as a summary to make the items easier to find. Or maybe you've created an MQ sheet but forgot to enter the appropriate sheet name before creating the sheet. You would be tempted to use the Excel-based right-click on the Worksheet tab and the Rename command there. Like this. Don't do it. Q2P uses worksheets and references to the bid items tabs for totals and for creating the XML export file when the design is complete. Instead, use the Rename MQ Sheet command in the MQ Sheet group of the Q2P ribbon. This only works on the current MQ sheet. Enter the new sheet name and press the green OK button. As with creating MQ sheets with multiple items, use a 3-digit number to start the name to allow Excel to sort the sheet properly. We'll use 646 pavement marking. Note that I'm using all caps here. Using all caps as the sheet title updates on the table mean I won't have to retype it if I'm using that on my miscellaneous quantity plan sheet. There will be a time when it makes more sense to have a bid item split between two tables. It could be water, used for compaction shown with the base aggregate, and then for vegetation shown with seeding and fertilizer. Or it could be conduit, scheduled separately for traffic signals and for lighting. Q2P supports the use of bid items on more than one MQ worksheet. We'll be using it in our sample project with respect to conduit. Let's say we're going to add a traffic signal to the project, and we want to use a separate table for that because our lighting conduit and wire table is starting to get large. We create another sheet using the Create MQ Sheets command, or add it into an existing sheet using the Insert Bid Items command. In this case, we'll be making a new sheet, so we'll use the Create MQ Sheets command. As we open the Create MQ Sheet dialog box, notice that the items that are already used on an MQ sheet are noted differently in the table. We're looking to use items 652, 0225, and 652, 0235. Remember to use Control Select to select the second item. When you've selected both items and added the MQ sheet name 652 conduit, select the green Create New Sheet button. Note that you see an asterisk character above the item column headers. This is to allow you to note that the item is shown on multiple miscellaneous quantity tables. Q2P adds this to the second instance of items inserted into a file, but it doesn't re-add it to the first. You'll need to go back to the original location to add the asterisks to those columns. Now let's go back to the bid items sheet and see how the formula for computing the total has changed. Note that in the formula bar, you see references to both the 655 conduit and wire sheet and the 655 conduit sheets. So, our pavement marking specialist contacted us again after he's seen your responses to the review comments. And he's decided that he doesn't want a stop bar in that location after all. Considering that's the only stop bar in the project, we'll have to remove the bid item. Remembering earlier in the exercise, we had this on the 646 pavement marking sheet. Again, you might be tempted to use the Excel right-click functionality and delete the columns containing the data for the item. But then you'd leave a litter of broken, unresolvable references running around your file. In order not to do this, use the Remove Bid Item command from the MQ Sheet group in the Q2P ribbon. The Remove Bid Item command only works on MQ sheets. If you try to use it on the bid items sheet, you'll get an error. But once you have it open, you'll see all of the items used on an MQ sheet. When you remove items, you'll have the option to remove it from just this MQ sheet or from all MQ sheets in your file. If this is the only MQ sheet the item is on, it is removed from the Q2P file entirely. If it's the only item on an MQ sheet, the MQ sheet is deleted. If the item is on multiple MQ sheets, using the Remove from All MQ sheets will remove the item from all of them. Just one warning. Any data in the columns of the item being removed is deleted and lost. If you were looking to transfer that data to another item, you will have to do it before removing the old item. Select the item you want to remove. In this case, we're looking at item 646-6020. And select the red Remove button. See how that what column M is now in column K. Let's check out the change to the bid items worksheet. You'll see that item 646-6020 isn't there anymore. There are times when you'll have to add a category into a miscellaneous quantity worksheet. Sometimes you'll have a local participation category that came late to the party. Sometimes you'll have just forgotten to add the category when you made the MQ sheet. Adding the category is a little bit of work. Let's add category 20 to the 646 pavement marking MQ sheet. To start, use the Excel clipboard to copy the category 10 data and place it below on the MQ sheet. Make sure to select the total row as you're doing this. To keep things straight, we'll change the data in column A to say 0020 and edit the total 0010 cell into total 0020. Note that changing category number is the only time that editing the total cell doesn't break things inside Q2P. But we're not done yet. We still need to update the data references in the Q2P file. It has to learn to look for a new category before it will show it on the bid item sheet or in the XML export. We do that by running the Rebuild References command in the MQ sheet group of the Q2P ribbon. Select the Start Rebuilding button to start the command. Before, you didn't have totals defined for category 20 with items 646, 1020, and 646, 6220. Now you do. Close the dialog box by selecting the gray X in the upper right-hand corner. Now that you have multiple categories in an MQ table, you'll need to add a project total according to the FDM. You'll need to type this one in. Remember to use all caps when typing in project total, because this will show through on your miscellaneous quantity plan sheets. Let's check the bid items sheet and see if our changes had an impact. But the values there haven't changed. It's half of the project totals we just computed. The formula here hasn't been updated yet. We'll need it to update the bid item. Select the Update Bid Items command in the Tool group of the Q2P ribbon. This dialog box will list all items present on a worksheet. If you use this command on an MQ sheet, it will only list the items in that worksheet. You can't create a selection set in this dialog box. After select each item, you'll have to update it before selecting the next one. Selecting 646, 1020. Selecting Update Selected. Q2P confirms the update with a pop-up notification. Dismiss this notification by clicking on the gray X or the OK button. We'll also need to update 646, 6220. Notice how the formula in the quantity cell for item 646, 6220 now contains another term that references category 20. There will be circumstances that you may want to remove categories too. Like if you remove the only item on an MQ sheet with multiple items that used a category, or if you put the data in the wrong category to begin with and need to remove the old one. We'll remove the category 20 from the 646 pavement marking sheet to demonstrate this. Removing a category is easier than adding one. You're just removing the data and then update the references and the bid item. We'll use Excel to delete the category 20 data from the worksheet. If the removal of the category only leaves one category left on the MQ sheet, you can remove the project total layer. We'll use Excel to delete the category 20 data from the worksheet. If the removal of the category only leaves one category left on the MQ sheet, you can remove the project total line as well. Note that using the delete key on your keyboard will only clear the contents of the cells. Use the right-click delete to remove underlying formatting as well. Once the data is removed, Q2P is specifically looking for the total 0020 cell. You can run the rebuild references command and then the update bid items command. Whenever you select the Update All in this worksheet button in the Update Bid Items dialog box, you'll get a notification that it may take some time to run. When you're in a MQ sheet with only a few items, that's not very long. Let's go back to the Bid Items sheet to see the impact of our work. Looking at the cell for the formula for the marking line epoxy 18-inch, you'll see the category 20 term isn't there anymore. Just keep in mind to always run the rebuild references command before the update bid items command. Otherwise, Q2P will record the removed cells as broken references and put error messages in the quantity column of the bid items worksheet. To add or remove a category from the bid items sheet, use the category setup command from the project group in the Q2P ribbon. The dialog box defaults to the next open category. If you're adding a new category, just add your data in here. Select the green OK button to confirm the data and close the dialog box. Note that you would still have to add that category to MQ sheets to tabulate bid items with that new category. To edit or delete a category, you'll use the category drop-down menu on the left-hand side of the dialog box. Let's look at category 20. We've only got one bridge on this job, B13572. Let's add that to the category description. Then confirm the change by selecting the green OK button. And confirm on the warning dialog box that pops open. Now we'll look at deleting a category from the Bid Items tab. Select the Category Setup command. This time, we'll look at Category 30. Notice the red Delete button near the bottom of the dialog box. If you switch to Category 10 or 20, it's not there. That's because Astroware Project Pre-Construction can't handle non-sequential category numbers. So if you're looking to delete a category in the middle, you'll have to renumber the other ones to fill it in. But since category 30 is the last one on the list, we can delete that one by selecting the red delete button. A warning notification opens, reminding you to remove any references to category 30 on your MQ sheets. It does this because Q2P will still associate items tabulated to category 30, even though it's not defined. And when the category is not defined, the XML export will fail to import into Astroware Project Pre-Construction. The only category 30 items on this project are found in the HMA pavement sheet. So after we delete this category, we'll head there to remove them. We'll navigate to sheets 465 asphalt pavement. We'll have to remove the category 30 data from this MQ sheet to complete the deletion. Delete the data using Excel functions, then run the rebuild references and update bid items command. Let's check that back out on the bid items sheet. Looking at the formula from one of our HMA pavement items, you'll notice in your formula bar that there isn't a term for category 30 anymore. This concludes this session of the Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video about creating miscellaneous quantity plan sheets in Microsoft PowerPoint. In this session, we will be covering working with the PowerPoint plan sheet template, linking data from the Quantities to Plans file to the PowerPoint plan sheets, working with tables spanning more than one page, and printing from PowerPoint to PDF. Quantities to Plans data can also be imported into Civil 3D DWG files, but will not be shown in this session. PowerPoint plan sheet templates for miscellaneous quantity sheets are available for download from the Q2P website under the additional resources near the bottom of the page. Save the PowerPoint file to your local or network hard drive. To keep the sheet border on the plan sheets consistent, we will add the project information to the Slide Master template inside the PowerPoint file. Select the View ribbon and the Slide Master command from the Master Views group. In the Slide Master, you can use the PowerPoint editing tools to edit the text boxes to match your project data. Remember to use the construction project ID for the project number. Remember to edit the file name, plot date, and plot by fields as well. For this project, our project number is 12345678. Our highway is State Highway 1. Our county is Adams. You'll also want to select and update the file name, plot date, and plot by fields on the bottom of the page as well. Note that there is a second blank Slide Master, so you may copy the original master and set up a master with a different project number. You can exit the Slide Master view by selecting the Close Master View command in the Close group of the Slide Master ribbon. See how the default slide now reflects the data we just entered? To insert a new slide, use the New Slide command from the Slides group of the Home ribbon. It will give you the option of which template to use. To copy data to the PowerPoint slide, go to your Q2P file. We'll be using the clipboard to copy data from the Q2P file and pasting it as an Excel object to hotlink the data to the PowerPoint plan sheets. Best practice is to select the area you wish to copy, then use the Set Print Area command from the Page Setup group on the Page Layout ribbon. This will allow the most functionality for maintaining data links between Excel and PowerPoint. If you use this option prior to copying information, rows inserted later in the process will not push the bottom rows out of the reference link, though you may still have to re-import the data if you add a row onto the bottom of the selection area. Let's work with item 204-0245-01. So select the data we want to copy, from the table title to the project total. Then use the print area, set print area command from the page setup group of the page layout ribbon. Once you have set the print area, copy the data to the clipboard using the command from the clipboard group on the home ribbon by right-click or by using the Control-C keyboard shortcut. With your data on the clipboard, you can now add it to the PowerPoint plan sheet. Select the Paste Special command from the clipboard group of the home ribbon. Select the Paste Link Radio button and paste as a Microsoft Excel worksheet object. This Paste Special command, when used in Civil 3D, is located in the clipboard group of the home ribbon. This will keep a hot link active between the miscellaneous quantities sheet table in the Q2P file and the PowerPoint plan sheet. This will allow you to see real-time updates to the plan sheets when you make changes in the Q2P file. Best practice is that you should open the Q2P file prior to opening the PowerPoint file. When the PowerPoint file opens, it will prompt you to update the links. It will do so by opening and closing the Q2P file for every link in the PowerPoint file. This can take a long time in projects with lots of bid items. While the PowerPoint is open without the Q2P file open first, you may be locked out of editing the Q2P file if another user on your network had the Q2P file open. Once the MQ table is within PowerPoint, we can move it around the worksheet using the object grips and resize the table. To resize the table, right-click on the object and select the Format Object command. This will show a dialog box on the screen. Resizing options will be under the third tab, the one with the dimensions on the object under the size grouping. Keep the aspect ratio locked. Best practice that the scale is not to be reduced below 80% for readability. Should your table be too large for one PowerPoint slide, you've got some work to do to show the data properly on multiple pages. For the first example, we'll be using the 655 conduit and wire MQ sheet. To format your Q2P file for multiple pages horizontally and that you have too many rows of data, look at your test import to see how many rows you can fit on a sheet, so you can figure out where to break the data. In this case, we'll be breaking at the category level. It provides convenient table subtotals. Keep in mind that all tables should end with total rows, table subtotals for example. Make sure not to use the total 00x0 format unless the total represents a category total. You would also need to alter the formulas to compute the totals so you're not double counting data. Insert a row using Excel to break your data. What we want to do is to copy and insert the table title and headers into this space. We'll do this by using the Excel clipboard, and then by inserting the copied cells. You can select the whole row if desired. By selecting on the row number, you can use the command Insert Copied Cells. Once you've got your separate tables, we can work on copying the tables over to PowerPoint. Because you can only define one print area per worksheet, we'll need another way to define the area being copied. For this, we'll be using Excel's name command to set multiple areas in the MQ sheet. Select the Category 10 table first. Select the Define Name command, which is accessible from the Defined Names group on the Formulas ribbon or by the right-click Context menu. We should put in a descriptive name. A good format would be to refer to the table title and which portion of the table. For example, Conduit and Wire, page 1. Note that the defined names must start with a letter or an underscore, and don't allow several special characters. Similarly, we can define the Category 20 table. We'll define the name as Conduit and Wire, page 2. We can then use the clipboard to copy the tables to PowerPoint like we've learned earlier in this session. For our second example, we'll use the 465 asphalt pavement worksheet. To split your Q2P file for multiple pages vertically, namely you have too many columns of data, copy the category, station, and location columns on your worksheet. Excel inserts pasted data to the left of the column selected. Bear in mind that we want to keep the two-cell spacing between the total cells and the first column total. This is an Excel function, so you can undo and try again if you pick the wrong column. Make sure you've copied the table title so it shows on both tables. You can define names just like the previous example, and then use the clipboard to copy to the PowerPoint sheets. When printing, print to PDF directly from PowerPoint. This will look different based upon which program you're looking for. This may look different based upon which program you're using for PDF creation and how your drivers and add-ins are installed. The print options are in the file menu under Print. You'll notice that you'll have a lot of white space to the top and bottom of the page. That's because PowerPoint usually defaults to printing on an 8.5 by 11 page, not the 11 by 17 page we want. You'll want to print directly to PDF. Select your Office's preferred tool for that. In WizDoc computers, you have a few options. For this demonstration, we'll be using Bluebeam. Select Printer Properties to verify the settings. WizDoc standards require sheets to be 11 by 17 in the PDF file. You'll need to select the 11 by 17. WizDoc standards require sheets to be 11 by 17 in the PDF file. You'll need to select the 11 by 17 paper size from your Printer Properties dialog box. If you don't have the option to select the 11 by 17 in the Paper Quality tab, you should be able to in the Advanced button on the dialog box. While we're here, we'll check the paper orientation. Select the Layout tab in the Printer Properties dialog box. We want to make sure the orientation is set to landscape. Once we have verified that, we can close the dialog box. Print all slides, and the created PDF should be filed where you keep your PDF plan sheets. All the MQ sheets will generate into the same file. This concludes this session of Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video. In this session, we will be covering exporting and importing data from AshToWare Project Estimator, working to view the 80-20 rule for establishing significant items, producing a cost report output, and formatting and printing from the Q2P file for including with estimate documentation. Estimate documentation is a PS&E deliverable discussed in FDM 19.5.6. A Q2P worksheet can be utilized as an effective way to show documentation on minor items and be included in your estimate documentation report. AshToWare Project Estimator is an excellent way to get a first glance at estimated prices. Estimator includes data from statewide bids over the last 3 years and places them in a series of regression curves, which can be used to estimate prices based upon estimated quantities. The toEstimator XML command, shown on the export group of the Q2P ribbon, will package up project data for import into Estimator. Bear in mind that this export strips the category data completely from the project. All items will be put into Category 10 for the export. This will save you time in Estimator looking for prices, because if an item occurs in multiple categories, it will apply the unit cost quantity regressions to the full project quantity, like a bidding contractor would. If you're looking to port over items to Estimator to use to create an export file with multiple project IDs, this will challenge your ability to do so. Just like Q2P, Estimator files are not set up to work with multiple projects. Our first step will be to export the quantity data from the Q2P file. Select the toEstimator XML command in the export group of the Q2P ribbon. In our example, we're in the North Central region, abbreviated as NC in the drop-down menu. And our work type is structures. When those have been selected, select the Export button. The XML file will default save to your C users username documents folder on your local hard drive. Choose to save this file in a different location or keep it in the default location. Launch Estimator and import the XML file using the Import File command from the File menu. Navigate to your XML file and open it. Note that as I've already mentioned, all the data comes in under one category. On the project data for the project, note that a few fields have already been filled in. If you start looking at the individual bid items, you'll notice there are nothing placed inside the units. This is not a deal breaker. The regression will continue to work as in the catalog each item has a specific unit tied to it. If you already had some estimated cost data in Q2P, verify that the project total in Estimator matches the project total in Q2P. This is a check to make sure that the quantities came over correctly. If the amounts don't match, you'll have to go through item by item, comparing the bid items worksheet to make sure the quantities match up. The most likely mismatch error will be an item quantity rounding. If the item quantity is not rounded on the miscellaneous quantity worksheet, even though the bid items worksheet shows a proper rounded number, this is done through the decimal display function in Excel and is still stored as a real number. If you have an item that did not get assigned an item description when it came over, then your Q2P file is working with a retired or incorrect bid item. In order to have Estimator select the correct regressions, we'll need to enter some project information. Our highway type is undivided principal arterial. Our urban rural type is rural. Our season is based on the season of letting. We're working with an imaginary August let, so that will be summer. And we're in Adams County. Once finished with that, you can reset the regressions in the estimate by using the Update Price Information command in the Edit menu. Select the Restart Radio button and select OK. You'll notice that most items have an expandable plus sign next to them. That's how you look at the regressions behind the prices. Estimator regressions are best when working within 25% and 75% of data points, due to the asymptotic nature of the regression curves. The closer you get to the limits, the less accurate the regression curves are. Note that the regressions will give you a number that is far too precise for our work. You will need to re-enter the price of each item to round to a whole cent. This is done by selecting the unit price field and entering in the data. For example, let's use $14.75 for clearing. You'll notice immediately that the price source shifted from regression to ad hoc. That's Estimator's way of telling you that it's working off a direct entry value. Once you've worked through Estimator and established your unit prices,
You can copy the information by hand back to the bid items worksheet, or you could create an export file from Estimator to bring the data into Q2P. To create an Estimator export file, use the Export Estimate File command in the File menu. Rename the file to reference the project ID and add the note to Q2P to keep it straight in your project files. Back to Q2P, select the From Estimate XML command from the Import group in the Q2P ribbon. Be warned that this data will overwrite all data currently entered into column A of the bid items worksheet and cannot be undone with the undo command. If you have data in column K, such as a previous version of estimated prices you wish to have documentation for, move them out of column K first. Select your XML file from Estimator in the Import Estimator XML file dialog box. Select the Import button to bring the data in. Dismiss the pop-up box when you're done. If you wish to directly copy estimated prices into the unit price column, copy the data in column K to the clipboard, then paste values using the right-click context menu. Note that the unit price column reports to the 100th place. An estimator can generate prices to the 1,000th place. Make sure to round to the nearest whole cent when reporting estimated unit prices. Unit price information does not report out to Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction unless it is included in column F of the bid items worksheet. The 80-20 rule is a concept that you will get a more precise estimate if you spend more effort working on the most significant items in your project. Q2P has several options for assisting you in identifying these items. This training will be covering 2 of them. The easier method we will cover has some difficulties maintaining data integrity, and an option that is more conceptually difficult but won't possibly ruin your data. The easiest method is to use Excel's sort command to sort the bid items in the worksheet by the cost column. But before we can do that, we must unprotect the bid items worksheet. The bid items worksheet is protected against formatting changes to maintain some of the automation and links inside the application. We can unprotect the worksheet by selecting the Unprotect Sheet command from the Changes group of the Review ribbon. Q2P does not initially use a password to protect the sheet. If one is present, you'll have to talk to the user who put the protection on the sheet to get the password. Keep in mind that if you want to run a command in the Q2P ribbon, the bid items worksheet will protect itself again. With this done, we're almost ready. Take note of your construction estimate total. Multiply that by 0.8 to get the total we're looking for. In the case of our example, we're just looking for a little over $3 million. Sorting data in Excel comes with some challenges. This mostly stems from Excel only keeping rows together if the data in them is contiguous, which means in our example, if we sort on one of the columns A through G, those will end up sorting until we get to column K, which won't be sorted with it. If you are keeping your estimate documentation in Q2P, This could be a catastrophic loss of data for your file. Best practice when using the sort command is to save your file before doing the sort. That way you can reload the file from your save and continue working. Now we're ready to sort. You can access the sort command from the sort and filter group of the data ribbon. On the number filter drop-down in the column headers, or on the right-click context menu. The dialog box will only occur when you use the ribbon command. Accessing sort from the number filter or the right-click will sort based upon the column you've selected the filter or data in. In this case, we'll be interested in the G column, total cost per item. You'll notice immediately that, like I mentioned earlier, columns A through G stayed together, but column K did not follow along. The simplest way to figure out if your items are within the 80% level is to select cells in column G until the running total on the status bar in the lower right-hand corner meets or exceeds the 80% of the estimate amount we computed before sorting. In our case, we see that the items in row 14 through 22 total up to 22% of the value. Notice how this is just over $3 million. Because we may discard this information, keep note in a separate location which items are significant. You can note this in the file, but you might lose the data association if you sort back to normal. The other option we're covering here is to utilize the number filters in Excel to selectively hide rows of data to make finding your 80% more visible. Like the sort method, you'll have to unprotect the sheet using the command in the Changes group of the Review ribbon. In this case, because I saved this file with the sheet unprotected, it was still unprotected when I reopened the file. Select the number filter icon in the cost column header and select the top 10 command under number filters. You will see a dialog box that will allow you to select how many items you'll test against. A good starting point is about 20% of the total bid items of your project. In our case, that's about 12 items. Select OK to apply the filter. What the number filter does is hide the data we don't want to see. It doesn't remove it from the file, but it will allow us to work with the data as if it was adjacent to each other. To see if we're in our 80% cost envelope, select the total cost values and look at the running total on the status bar. If you're less, you need to include more items. If you're more, you need to include less items. Continue iterating this process until you reach that 80% of your construction cost value. In our example, the 12 items we selected is too many. Run the number filter again and select 11 items. 11 is still too many. Let's try 8 this time. Eight is too few. That should make 9 our magic number. And there we go, with our running total sum just over $3 million. The benefit of this method that it doesn't separate the estimate documentation notes on the column I and further right from the data, and that you can note significant items immediately in the Q2P workbook. You can note those items by highlighting the cost cells, or by entering data as text in column I or to the right of that. For example, in our example, we'll note these items as significant items by putting some text in column M. Once you have documented which items are significant from this test, select the number filter icon again and select the Select All checkbox. Select OK to close the number filter. This will unhide the remaining project items. Notice how the text notes on significant items stayed corresponding to their items. While the bid items worksheet is a good check on the total project cost, it only breaks down the total construction cost by category. It doesn't break down which items occur in which category. Q2P comes with the utility to print out a cost report by category, which will show a category total and which items are referenced by the category. To run this report, use the Generate Cost Report command from the Export group of the Q2P ribbon. Select Generate to have the application start working. This might take a few minutes as the program goes through each item and checks for quantities in each category. Select Print to PDF to launch a dialog box on where to save the generated PDF. And this is how the report will look when it's completed. If you are using the bid items worksheet as your estimate documentation, you will need to use space in column I or to the right to enter your notes. While you can enter text while the worksheet is protected, you can alter the format of cells, such as making the columns wider or rows higher to allow for more text. Unprotect the sheet to allow for you to format the cells. As usual, this can be found in the Unprotect Sheet command on the Changes group of the Review ribbon. Bear in mind that the size of the cell has no bearing on referencing the contents of that cell, so you may alter row heights and column widths as needed without breaking the references in the application. The Wrap Text command in the Alignment group of the Home ribbon will be particularly useful to prevent over-wide columns. Once you have formatted the worksheet, you'll need to set the print area for printing. Select the entire data block you wish to print from the categories on up. Due to the construction of the headers using merged and locked cells, it is the best practice to begin the selection in the lower right corner of the data and select towards the upper left. Then use the Print Area Set Print command from the Page Layout ribbon to set the print area for the worksheet. Once you have set the print area, you're ready to print. Select the File menu, then the Print option. Use the printer properties to set the paper size as desired and set the paper orientation and scaling as desired. Bear in mind that the data needs to be readable, so verify this is the case if you fit all columns onto one page as the scaling. In this case, I'm choosing a tabloid paper size, which is 11 by 17. And selecting fit all columns on one page as scaling. From here, you can print and save this current version in your electronic file for attaching to your estimate documentation. This concludes this session of the Quantities to Plans training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video. In this session, we will be covering exporting of project data to AASHTO-Aware project pre-construction. Before exporting to AASHTO-Aware project pre-construction, you want to look over the Q2P file. Best practices for categories is if a category isn't used on an item worksheet, it should be deleted from it. This will reduce the potential for errors in case you've mistakenly entered data in that space. Don't forget to rebuild the references prior to updating the bid item. Finally, update all the bid items. Before you do, take note of your cost estimate total. Then select the Update Bid Items command in the Tool group of the Q2P ribbon. You'll want to update all items in the Bid Items worksheet, so select the Update All in this worksheet button. This will take some time, as the pop-up warning says. Q2P will look through every cell on the worksheet. It will take longer in projects with more items. Select Yes. If your construction cost estimate changed after this, then you've got a problem to track down. Verify that the quantity shown on the bid items worksheet matches what is in the item worksheets. Check for formulas in the cells of column D of the bid items worksheet to see if an item is missing a sheet or a category reference. This may be easiest to check compared to miscellaneous quantity plan sheets. We're now ready to export to AASHTO-Aware project pre-construction. Before we proceed, save your file. The first thing you'll notice is that the icons on the Excel ribbon have changed. This is due to an update in Microsoft Office in between the recording and editing of this video. Once you have saved your Q2P file, you're now ready to export to AASHTO-Aware project pre-construction. To create the export file, select the AWP Precon XML command in the Export group of the Q2P ribbon. The dialog box that launches has two drop-down menus to select predominant work type and the region the project is administrated by. In our example, our work type is structures, and our region is North Central, abbreviated as NC in the drop-down menu. Then select the Export button to generate the XML file. You'll see that the dialog box logs how many items, noted as lines, were exported for each category, as well as where the XML export file has been temporarily stored. You can use the Save As button to change where the file is stored. Open the XML file in a browser, WordPad, or an XML editor to review the file prior to upload into AWP. As you look through the XML file, notice a few things. Note that the export file does not port the item descriptions. This is because Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction and Q2P pull from the same database for items, each of which is associated with a unique number. AWP just repopulates the item description from the database as it imports the file. Pay special attention to the supplemental descriptions on items. Keep in mind using the 2-digit prefix on supplemental descriptions to help with ordering the item list. This is especially important with SPV items. Check the use of initial capitalization, only using uppercase in the first letter of a word. Follow the instructions on the wiz.awp knowledge base or in Chapter 16 of the Q2P User's Guide to import the file into Ashtaware Project Pre-Construction. This concludes this training session. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video. In this session, we will be covering information useful for all users of Q2P, including additional tools for navigating in Q2P, renaming MQ sheets, common MQ sheet formatting issues, guidance on rounding, issues with the Excel sort command, and working with multiple project IDs. Most of this information has been discussed in previous sessions, but is also compiled here for reference. Due to the large number of worksheets that can be created, Q2P includes some navigational tools to assist you in working with your file. Some of these are added in the context-sensitive right-click on your mouse. While on the Bid Items worksheet, a right-click will show the opportunity to go to the worksheet of the item clicked on. Because Q2P can show items on multiple worksheets, you will always be given a dialog box to select which worksheet to navigate to. While on an item worksheet, the context-sensitive right-click will give you the opportunity to return to the Bid Items worksheet. You will also find this command in the Tools group of the Q2P ribbon. Also keep in mind that the hotkey shortcut of going to the next worksheet of Control Page Up and Control Page Down works, as well as the quick navigation dialog box accessed by right-clicking the scroll buttons next to the list of the worksheet tabs in the lower left-hand corner of Excel. Do not utilize the Excel functions to rename or delete worksheets, typically accessed through the right-clicking on Worksheet tabs. Removing or renaming worksheets in this manner will break the references that Q2P maintains within a file to link data on worksheets to the Bid Items worksheet and for creating export files to AWP Estimator or Pre-Construction. Instead, we have provided utilities to delete or rename MQ sheets within Q2P. To delete an MQ sheet, utilize the remove bid item command. When the last bid item is removed from an MQ sheet, the worksheet is deleted, and so is any data you have associated with it. If it is the last instance of a bid item in the Q2P file, the item is removed from the List of Bid Items tab. To delete an MQ sheet, utilize the remove bid item command. When the last bid item is removed from a worksheet, the worksheet is deleted, and so is any data you have associated with it. If it is the last instance of a bid item in the Q2P file, the item is removed from the Bid Items tab as well. To rename an MQ sheet, utilize the Rename MQ Sheet command. Enter the new sheet name in the dialog box. Excel and Q2P have some common errors that show up regularly. The error of multiple pound signs showing in a cell is an Excel notation that the cell isn't large enough to display all the data in it. Resize the column width to show the data. This often occurs when a cell isn't formatted to the proper number of significant digits. Notice you'll see that some of our computations on the right side of the MQ table on this asphalt pavement sheet. You can change the column width by dragging its size or by right-clicking on the column letter and entering a new width. Note that text strings, like item descriptions, stationing with alignment descriptions, or remarks, do not show the multiple pound signs when they are too small to display all the data in them. Instead, not all of the data is shown. Check your MQ plan sheets to make sure that you're not cutting off any data after you transfer your tables onto them. If you see a hashtag ref notation, it means that Excel has detected a break in a formula reference. This is most likely due to removing a category from an MQ sheet where the Update Bid Items command was selected without selecting Rebuild References, generating a reference error on a category that was removed, or from the deletion of the total row of an MQ sheet. To repair this error, first restore the category by adding in the appropriate total cell and data, then run Rebuild References and update the bid item. Then remove the category again, run Rebuild References, and update the bid items. Rebuilding references, updating bid items. Deleting the data, rebuilding references, updating the bid items. Error has been resolved. If you see small triangles in the upper left-hand corner of cells with computations, that is an Excel function checking for the consistency of formulas in a table, working like spelling and grammar checks in Word. This can be carried over onto MQ plan sheets as a part of the Excel object link. These triangles can be turned off by turning off the error checking in the Options menu of Excel. To get to the Options menu of Excel, go to the File menu. Select Options from the list of commands on the left-hand side of the screen. Select Formulas from the left-hand side of the Options dialog box. Under Error Checking, you'll find a checkbox to enable background error checking and a color selector. This is how the program flags the formulas that look inconsistent with the work around them, and what prompts these triangles. Click off the background error checking to remove the triangles. Select OK to close the Excel Options dialog box. The station format utilized in the MQ sheets is a custom format. If you wish to restore the format, the easiest option is to utilize the Format Painter command in the clipboard group of the Home ribbon. To use the tool, select the cell format you wish to copy, then select the Format Painter command, then select the cells you wish to apply the format to. Bear in mind that when using alignment descriptions in stations, we'll turn the station notation into text strings, removing the ability to use the location information in formulas. The formatting tools in the alignment group of the Home ribbon will allow you to align the data consistently, rather than the default Excel format of left aligning text strings and right aligning numbers. Rounding guidance for items can be found in the FDM. Projects at different scales will have different levels of precision. Small projects, for example, may struggle to have a full hundredweight of fertilizer, but signs are always measured to the hundredth of a foot. Q2P's bid items worksheet defaults to showing no decimal places. If you have permanent signs paid for by the square foot, you will have to edit the format in the bid items worksheet to get it to show properly. Keep in mind that to edit the formatting of the bid items worksheet, you'll need to unprotect the sheet first using the unprotect sheet command in the review ribbon. FDM 19.5 3.3 provides an exception in items where you may struggle to measure discrete areas with full units, such as items measured by the mile, by acre, or by hundredweight, so it may be best to round only at the category total level. Other items should be rounded at the item entry level. Q2P provides the roundup quantity command, which will insert the roundup formula into a cell to assist in this process. The sort command from the right-click menu or from the data ribbon can be used to determine which items fit the 80-20 definition of significant items. But using the sort command has some unexpected consequences. What happens is that Excel doesn't sort full rows when doing this. If there is break of a column or more, the data doesn't get associated with the sort. So if you're keeping notes, such as an estimator price import for item documentation, they won't sort correctly. Best practice if you plan to use the sort command is to save before use, and then revert to the saved version of the file. First, you'll need to unprotect the sheet using the unprotect sheet command in the review ribbon. Now we're ready to sort. You can access the sort command from the sort and filter group of the data ribbon, on the number filter drop-down at the column headers, or by the context-sensitive right-click menu. The dialog box will only occur when you use the command from the ribbon. Accessing sort from the number filter or the right-click will sort based upon the column you've selected the data filter in or the cell in. In this case, we're interested in the G column, total cost per item. will sort from largest to smallest. You notice immediately that, like I mentioned earlier, columns A through G stayed contiguous together with their data, but column K didn't follow along. This will not impact the functionality of your Q2P file for export, but it will impact how you do estimate documentation if you're using your Q2P file for that. Alternatives to using the sort command to find the 80-20 significant items are to use the number filters present in the bid items worksheet, or to use conditional formatting. The Q2P user guide covers both workflows. When working with multiple project IDs, it is best to use a separate Q2P file for each project ID. Q2P is not capable of duplicating category classifications, so it is unable to differentiate between category 10 between two projects. ASHTO-aware Project Estimator behaves similarly with multiple project IDs. Keep in mind that estimated costs should be considered for quantities across the entire proposal. SPV items and supplemental descriptions are numbered by the proposal as well. If you encounter a problem in Q2P, first check the online training and user guide to verify you have followed the workflows correctly. If you are still encountering problems, you can ask for assistance by contacting Q2P support staff by using the DOT Q2P at dot.wi.gov email address. Staff in WIS.dot region offices are also encouraged to contact support staff in their offices. A list of members of the Q2P support staff is found on the Q2P website. This concludes this session of Q2P training. Hello, welcome to the Quantities to Plans training video. In this session, we will be covering how to utilize the Q2P tools for reconciling with new, changed, or retired bid items. Department policy makes it very likely that you will be designing your project over the course of a few or more years. In each of those years, the standard specification will be updated, creating new bid items, retiring some, and renaming others. This presents a challenge for creating miscellaneous quantity tables, as those changes can mean rework. Q2P is set up to address some of that work by automating some of the process of updating your file to the current standards. Each time the Q2P file is loaded, it checks with the AWP database and finds out if any items have been added or changed. Select the Project Bid Items command in the Data group of the Q2P ribbon. This may take a moment to load. You'll see here some red text in the upper right-hand corner of the dialog box. This means that there are new bid items to address and notes how many of those changes affect items already referenced in the Q2P file. Select the red text to start the reconciliation process. The dialog box that opens has three major areas. The top one is for items in your Q2P file but aren't in the AWP database. This is most likely when a bid item is retired. This is for informational purposes only. To remove this item from your file, you'll need to transfer the data to a different item, either a replacement bid item or an SPV item, then delete the item from your Q2P file. Remember that when you remove an item from your file, all the data associated with it is deleted, so make sure to move your data first. There is no method to remove obsolete or retired bid items from your project bid items list, other than manual checking. If the is obsolete column is checked in the project bid items list, don't use the item. But an item can be retired in the standard specification for the upcoming construction season that is released in May, but can remain live in the system to bid projects until November. Projects with August or November PS&E submittals should pay attention to the standard specification to check which items are retired. This is an example of the bid items list from the 2020 standard specifications. Note how the item 608-6006 storm sewer pipe composite 6-inch is noted to be retired. The middle area of the reconcile dialog box is for items in the AWP database but aren't in the project file. This is most likely when new bid items are created. You can add these items to your Q2P file by selecting them in the dialog box and selecting the Add to Project button. Let's add item 644-1410 to the project. To do that, select the item in the dialog box and select the Add to Project button. You'll see the item move to the top dialog box. Select the gray X in the upper right-hand corner of the dialog box to close it. Select the Project Bid Items command again, and let's look for our new bid item. Scrolling down to 644. Looks like we just passed it. 1410. In this case, in 2020, temporary surface pedestrian. In this case, temporary pedestrian surface asphalt was removed from the STSP list and added to the standard specification, removing the .s suffix from the item name. Keep in mind that if the item requires a supplemental description, you'll have to add that in the Project Bid Items dialog box like usual. To use the newly added item in your project, you'll add it to your Q2P file with the create MQ sheet command like any other item. The lower area is for reconciliation between the project bid items and the AWP database. This would happen if the item was renamed or the unit was changed. You can compare the possible changes by selecting the Highlight Differences button. Note that the Accept Changes button does not appear until you select Highlight Differences. You'll notice in the example for Preparation Approaches, the description has changed from Preparation Approaches to Preparation Approaches Special. Select the Accept Changes button to update the project bid items list. A pop-up window confirms your selection because the dialog box doesn't change. Then close the dialog box by selecting the gray X in the upper right-hand corner. Select the Project Bid Items command to check on the changes we made. Select the Project Bid Items command to check on the changes we made. We're looking for preparation decks, and that's around 509. Preparation approaches, I should say. Note that the old item is still present in the Project Bid Items list. You'll have to keep track of this in your own manual checking to make sure you're using the correct bid item. Best practice is to take notice of which items are being updated prior to accepting changes. The MQ sheet titles, supplemental descriptions, and unit of measure are created at MQ sheet creation and are not dynamically linked with the project bid item list. In addition, if the unit of measure was changed and the item requires a supplemental description, you will need to recreate that supplemental description in the project bid items dialog box. Once you have accepted the changes to the altered items, you will need to update the MQ sheets related to the updated items for the current item descriptions, supplemental descriptions, and units of measure. This concludes the session of Quantities to Plans training.